Good evening, dear A-levels. Here's a small video on the topic homeostasis in plants. This is a section of syllabus, and we'll be focusing at how stomata opens and closes. This is our topic. So let's see how they open. So, stomata is a place outside. Stomata is a small pore around which there are guard cells. So I should draw them differently. Guard cells are the ones which surround the stomata. So imagine these are two guard cells, and then outside they have obviously cell wall. And here's the cell wall of this cell. And the pore in between is called stomata, this one. So they have a gap inside, which we call stomata, between the two guard cells. And the guard cells have obviously their wall, cell wall. Each of the guard cell has cell wall and also the cell membrane. So how does stomata open? For first, you need to understand that for stomatal opening, guard cells must get turgid. So basically, hydrogen ions move out of this actively. They are pumped out. Then when hydrogen ions move out, obviously inside of cell membrane becomes negatively charged. Basically, there are positive and negative ions on either side of membrane. So when hydrogen ions move out actively, they are pumped out. So naturally, inside will remain negative, will get negative. So in response to that, potassium ions rush in. When potassium ions rush in, then the guard cell cytoplasm will get concentrated. Why? Because of the entry of potassium ions. When it gets concentrated, we can also call it hypertonic. And this obviously will have low water potential. When it has low water potential, water rushes in by osmosis. So we say that end osmosis occurs. Water moves in. When water moves in, the cells get turgid. And when they get turgid, guard cells, when they get turgid, so obviously they expand. And when they expand, stomata open. Right? So we understand that for stomatal opening, guard cells must get turgid. So let me write this again, the sequence of how stomata open. Number one, hydrogen ions are actively pumped out. Then potassium ions move in, they rush in. Why? Because inside is negative. And then water potential, inside guard cells, water potential is lowered. When water potential is lowered, then obviously water moves in. When water moves in, guard cells get turgid. When guard cells get turgid, they expand. And when they expand, stomata open. Right? This is how stomatal opening occurs. But the question is, why would stomata open? Stomata opens to let CO2 come in because CO2 is used in photosynthesis. And stomata also opens to let transpiration take place. You must have studied in AS that transpiration is an inevitable process. Plants cannot avoid this. It's a must. Transpiration is a must for so many reasons. Number one, transpiration has a cooling effect on plants. Number two, transpiration causes an upward pulling force, which we say transpiration pull, that makes water and minerals go up. And if, this ensures replenishment of mineral ions. So these two major events, one is the cooling effect and the other one is replenishment of mineral ions, is a must. Both depend on transpiration. So stomata needs to get open a little for transpiration, and obviously CO2 needs to be taken in. For that also stomata it's a must for stomata to get open. Because if CO2 is not there, so dark reaction or your Kelvin cycle of photosynthesis won't take place. But there are times when stomata closes themselves, right? Stomata gets closed. Why? And these are the hours of stress. So when plants are under stress, so what could be the stress for plants? Obviously, very high temperature, or it could be drought, shortage of water. So, for example, there is shortage of water. That is a stress for plants because plants depend on water too much. The process of photosynthesis and the transpiration and everything. So when plant is under stress, for example, drought, so a hormone is released called ABA. The full form is abscisic acid. So abscisic acid goes and binds to the receptor on the membrane of guard cells. As we just saw, that guard cells have cell wall and also the membrane. They are living cells. They've got chloroplast, vacuole, and so many structures, many small vacuoles. And so what they do is when a plant is under stress, AB is released, and AB goes and binds to its receptor, right? On the membrane. Imagine this is receptor for ABA. So ABA binds to this. Let me write down ABA receptor. So since ABA wants to close the stomata, so this ABA binding to its receptor, this will stop hydrogen ion going out. So hydrogen ions won't move out. They'll be stopped to move out. As we saw earlier, that for stomatal opening, hydrogen ions must move out. But ABA stops them from moving out. Then what happens is, rather than when hydrogen ions cannot move in, rather calcium ion moves into this. Calcium ion enters. And that calcium ion causes release of negative ions. I mean, negative ions go out of guard cells to the wall. When negative ions move out, obviously outside gets negative, right? Then potassium ions leak out. You can see that an opening of stomata, potassium ions would go in, but here potassium ions rush out. When potassium ions go out, obviously outside gets low water potential rather than inside. So you can say inside guard cells, water potential increases. When water potential increases inside guard cells, obviously X osmosis occurs. X osmosis means water goes out of guard cells because inside water potential has increased. And obviously cells get flaccid. Guard cells get flaccid. When they get flaccid, stomata closes. So this is how plant will manage its stress by losing less water. Obviously, it will compromise the CO2 uptake, but that will prevent too much loss of water as well. Thank you so much. Yeah, then next there are a few questions. Let's try them on the same topic. They are from 2022. He says A, B, C, D. Where is a Kelvin cycle and which is mainly made by cellulose. So Kelvin cycle takes place in the chloroplast, which is B, and cellulose is, delta D, the wall is made by cellulose. Next, it says describe how hydrogen ions and potassium ions are involved in opening of stomata. So, hydrogen ions move out, then this causes potassium ions move in. You can see the marking as well. Hydrogen ions are pumped out. It says then potassium ions, hydrogen ions go out, pumped out into the cell wall. Inside of cell becomes negatively charged and potassium rushes in by facilitated diffusion. And when potassium ions move in, water potential drops. So water enters by endosmosis, cell expands, and stomata open. Next question from March 2022 is A, B. A is chloroplast, obviously, B is vacuole, and C is the cell membrane. Role of abscisic acid. So, abscisic acid binds to its receptor, stops hydrogen ions going out, rather than calcium ions move in. Let's see what Marxing tells us. Abscisic binds to receptor on cell membrane of guard cells. Proton pumps are inhibited, so hydrogen ions can't go out. Rather, calcium ions move in, right? Calcium ions act as second messenger, and they cause potassium ions diffusion. When potassium ions diffusion, water potential of guard cells decreases. Water rushes in. Uh, Potassium ions diffuse out. After calcium ions move in, potassium ions diffuse out. So outside water potential decreases. Inside the guard cells, water potential increases. So water will leave the guard cells and they'll get flaccid and stomata will close. Thank you.